This is Caroline from Caroline's Adventure. We all face challenges in our lives. How do some people take those challenges and turn them into powerful results? Join me as we dig into a story on resilience, hope, and joy, and uncover lessons we can each use in our own lives. But before we start, please take a moment to show that 5-star rating button some love, and follow while you're there to be updated every time I release a new episode. Now, before we begin, a word of caution. On this podcast, we regularly discuss topics like sexual assault, suicide, and addiction, which may be disturbing to some. Please take care as you listen. And if you need support in the United States, reach out to the crisis text line at 741-741. Today we're talking with Talia Smith, and she's got a pretty amazing story. I don't think sometimes people realize how much courage it takes to be open and honest in the ugly parts of life and share how it's really impacted you.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
If you would, I'd love for you to start at the beginning, talk about how your life was going before you took those medications and then how it impacted your life.
I was very healthy. I worked out all the time. I had a job that I loved. I worked for a healthcare company. I know, huh? I worked for a healthcare company for a decade before I got sick. I also took care of my husband, who is a disabled veteran. He's a quadriplegic. So between working out, working many hours at my job, being my husband's caretaker, I had a very, very busy life, but it was full and I was happy. And I was someone that only went to the doctors like for my yearly visits. So I was not used to the healthcare system or being chronically ill. This has been like flipping my world upside down, that this whole other universe exists of chronic illness and the failure of the medical system. This is like earth shattering to me.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I was, living my life. I have 2 stepchildren. And then I got a urinary tract infection. And for people that watch this, I always have to say, I did not have a series of urinary tract infections. It is not something that I had all the time. I probably hadn't had a UTI in a decade. So, but as a woman, you know what it is when you get it. Like there's no doubt about it. So I called my doctor and I said, I'm pretty sure I have a UTI. And immediately there came the prescription. I was like, no. I want a urinalysis, a culture. I want to make sure I actually have one and, what the bacteria is and all that stuff. So the results came back positive, and the doctor actually said it's a very low bacteria count actually, but I was very symptomatic. So I was prescribed Ciprofloxacin. And I said to her, I asked, is there anything I need to know about this medication? Because I did not take medication. I was not used to taking antibiotics or anything like that. So, hey, anything I should know? And I was told, nope, there's nothing you need to be aware of. This medication is safe and effective, and we use it all the time for urinary tract infections at the practice. So I trusted my doctor, and I just went and started my course of treatment. It was 1 pill every 12 hours. By my 3rd pill, which was my 2nd day, this is when I started feeling all these crazy symptoms. I started getting like electricity zaps in my head, like, whoa, what is that? Like, I feel like I'm being electrocuted. I had this little thing shaking on my face. I had pain throughout my entire body, every single bone, like everything hurt. And it hurt to even stand on my heels. And I said to my husband, I don't feel good. Like I'm in a lot of pain. And he said, oh, you did a lot around the house today. You cleaned and you cooked. And I said, yeah, but I always do that. So, I kept going on with my day. And then that next pill was supposed to happen. But I just had a really bad feeling. The fact that I couldn't even stand on my heels. And then I felt like numbness and tingling in my limbs. And I started getting really scared. And I said, I don't know if this is it. This medication, it's just an antibiotic. That's what I said at the time. But I'm just not going to take this pill. I don't know. I'm not going to take the pill. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to wake up, be fine tomorrow. So I put my husband to bed. I was limping, by the way, when I put him to bed. I went to bed. I woke up the next morning. When I went to step out of bed, I almost fell. And I said to my husband, it's worse. I can barely even walk. I need to go to the hospital. He's like, what? What do you mean you can't walk? I said, I don't know. I cannot walk. Like, so I went to the emergency room and I told the doctor, like, I've been totally healthy and all of a sudden overnight I can't walk. The only thing I've done differently is take an antibiotic. Other than that, my life is completely the same. Doctor turns around and says, are you taking Cipro? Oh crap. If he's equating with me not walking in Cipro, I am in big trouble. And I just said, yes, I'm taking Cipro. Why? He said, calm down, because he saw I was panicking. Calm down. But do you know what a black box warning is? No. I'm like, I asked my doctor. I'm thinking this in the back of my head. He's like, there's a black box warning for all fluoroquinolone. Cipro is a fluoroquinolone, and it causes Achilles heel tendonitis. He's partially right. That's one of the 7 black box warnings, but it was enough for me to have something to go on when I left the hospital. And he said, go home, rest, take ibuprofen, which for those viewers watching this that know about fluoroquinolone toxicity syndrome, ibuprofen and steroids are contraindicated. So you're not supposed to take them. So I went home and I started taking it around the clock because I was in so much pain. I kept getting worse. I'm like, I'm resting. I'm taking this ibuprofen. How the heck can I be getting worse? I am not understanding this. And then my symptoms are just getting crazier by the day, all over the place. It wasn't like in one system. You know, my vision started going blurry, I had a problem swallowing, I had noises in my ear. It was just, after that, I became a frequent flyer in the hospital. I was always in the emergency room. I was always at the doctor's office because something was wrong with my body. I always say it was like a bomb went off. Boom. Everything in that moment, it was over. My body was totally destroyed. And, you know, I ended up realizing about fluoroquinolone toxicity syndrome. And I was going to a functional neurologist, not Western, like typical allopathic medicine. And she said, we had a discussion, and a couple hours later, she called me back and she said, hey, what I said I was going to test you for, I changed my mind. You've been floxed. I said, I've been what? And she said, floxed. I said, can you spell that so I can Google it? This is how clueless I was back then. And I Googled floxed, and unfortunately, 5 months later, I was on hospice. I lost over 50% of my body weight. I dropped down to 60 pounds. I couldn't speak anymore. I could not eat at all. I was choking on my own saliva. I had a priest come to my house and read my last rites with all my family and friends. Let me tell you, there is nothing more humbling than that. You cannot get any more low than that. And I thought, I'm definitely done. This is definitely it. But here I am. But that's what got me to where I am. It's such a difficult thing to talk about, to be in that state of mind. You have to let go to be able to make a peaceful exit. So in my mind, I had to do what I needed to do to go and be okay. It doesn't mean I wasn't fighting. It was meaning that my body was so depleted. I hadn't eaten in 4 weeks. I hadn't drank water. People told me I could not survive without water for 4 weeks. That's not true. I did. I don't know how. Maybe it was the stores that I had in my body because I was so healthy. I've had doctors say that to me. I don't know. I was turning allergic to everything. That's why I had no foods. I couldn't eat. Everything gave me allergic reactions, hives, fainting, like the whole 9 yards. So any medications I used to take, couldn't, not even Benadryl. And I'm thinking, this is a medication for allergies. I can't even take that. At this point, I was only able to speak to my husband like this. I would say yes for one yes, two no. I was really, really close to the end. And my husband started calling doctors, begging them for mast cell medication. They gave me some tests, which were negative, but they were actually not done properly. I didn't know enough about mast cell back then to know that. My husband finally, like, he was obsessed in a good way, like to save my life, and would call the doctor's office 10, 15 times a day. Give her some cromolyn, give her some cromolyn, and these other medications. So he ended up saying, you know, she's going to die anyway. You say that these medications are benign and they can't hurt her. what's the harm in prescribing it? So they prescribed me this medication called sodium cromolyn, and you put some drops in your water. But remember, I was choking. So I could only take one sip and I would choke, one sip and I would choke, another drop, another. And it took me about a week, no joke. In a week, I was eating an Ensure pudding after having that medication for mast cell. Because most people that are floxed end up getting some form of mast cell, whether it's so severe like mine or minor or whatever, but that is not something I knew. So I would definitely say that turned things around for me and my stepchildren coming to visit me to say goodbye. And whenever I talk about this, get emotional. I say that, remember I told you I had to prepare myself to go, to make a peaceful exit. But I always explain it like this. I still had this little flicker. It was like, there, still going, still trying the best I could. And then when I saw my stepchildren and said, I'm never going to be at your wedding. I'm never going to, it was horrible. Whatever happened that day, it just turned that flicker into a flame. And it was like, give it all you got. And I'm like, I'm giving it all I got. I gave it all I got. But somehow there was something still in there that allowed me to keep moving forward. That and the combination of cromolyn is really what saved my life. And that's why I'm here today, to be able to speak to all of you. So I spent 9 months on hospice and moved to palliative care in 2022. I'm still on palliative care. I still require 24/7 care for my survival, but I am alive. So
That's
that's,
amazing.
yeah.
You touched on several things that I think are so powerful to remember, which is number one, the letting go place. Um, I mentioned earlier my accident, and mine was not nearly as life-threatening as yours. But the point at which my life turned around, because I was in that deep place, I was in that dark
Mhm.
place, and even though I had my children at that point, I felt like a burden, and I was at that place where I was like, if this is my future, is this really a life that I want to live? And I was having those hard thoughts. And
Ah,
I had to let go of the expectation that I would ever get back to where I was. I had to make peace with that. And I had to come to a realization of this is the reality that I have now. And where do I go from here? What do I do with what I've got to have the best possible life that I can have? And I love that for you, it was your stepkids coming to visit, and that it took that little flame inside of you and fanned it back into life. And
it did.
that's beautiful.
I
That's
tell them,
amazing.
you guys think you just came to visit me, but you saved my life. So,
Wow.
and so did my hospice team, ironically. People think you just go to hospice and you just lay there and they do nothing for you. That's not true. Hospice tries to make your life as peaceful as possible, um, and make you comfortable. And they help save my life too. That's what I'll say.
That's
And
wonderful.
I thought, like, to what you're talking about, when they came to assess you, because obviously a whole team has to come assess you. They have to believe you have less than 6 months to live to get on hospice. Your doctor writes the order, then they have to assess you. And one of the things the woman said was, the main, like, intake nurse, I don't know what their titles are, but she said to me, and it struck me, and that's when I realized I was on that path of letting go. Is she said to me, I've been a hospice nurse for 25 years, and I can tell, like, she knew that I was on my way out. I don't know how else to say it. And she said, have you felt the separation yet, the disconnect? And it just caught me like, yes, I have. And that was me, like, doing this. Maybe it's disassociation. I don't know what the correct word is, but to allow you to let go, whatever. And I just thought, whoa, like, she understands me. And, when I went to palliative care, all that time later, she came back because she couldn't believe it. And she saw me sitting up, even though I can't sit up for a long time. And she was crying. I was crying. She said, I've been doing this for 25 years. You are a miracle patient, miracle. And I just, obviously, I'm still here for a reason. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I very much believe that. I look at my life pre-accident versus post-accident, and I look at it as the catharsis that brought me to my true meaning of myself. And it's why I do a podcast. It's why I love these discussions, because before the accident, I had what looked like on paper to be an amazing life. And it was a very good life, but it also was very mired in the expectations of others
Mhm.
and creating
Yeah.
a front. I was very good at maintaining this facade, and then I had my accident and it took away my ability to keep that facade any longer. But I also feel like it brought me to the true meaning of who I am and what I'm here for.
Hmm.
And it sounds like you went through a very similar path of really getting to the essence of who you are. And it sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's true. It's
Yeah.
when you come that close to an edge, whatever the edge may be, it gives you a chance to really come to terms with who you are and the true strength that you have. And you are here by nothing other than just your sheer determination to be here. That's amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. For people that are in that place, what do you think is the recommendation that you would give them of how to come back from that?
In my experience, you need to find purpose. Whatever that purpose is, it doesn't have to be this grand, I'm going to be on like this. I'm being a podcast. No, it doesn't have to be something like that. It's whatever has meaning in your life. And I tell people all the time when they're going through this, like I always say, until there's nothing left, you go until there's nothing left. And you think, what is it that's keeping me here? What is it that I'm gonna miss so bad when I'm gone? And that was my kids and my husband. Those are the things that keep you going, keep you going through it. And then, like I said, you have to find purpose. If you don't find purpose, you will be in this black hole, be suffering without some way to distract you from the life that you're living, because this and just being real is not fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a life I would wish for anybody. But, I've taken my pain, my anger, which I'm still going through, my feelings of abandonment and betrayal from the medical system, and trying to turn it into something positive and becoming an advocate. And that is what my purpose is going to be now. It has been for the last like year and a half. But I want to make sure that people don't end up like me. And because it was avoidable. And for everyone else that is in this situation, my specific situation, fluoroquinolone toxicity, most of the times it could have been avoided. And many times the things we do in our life can also be avoided. We're not in that frame of mind. We think we're invincible. We think that nothing will ever happen to us. I could never imagine myself being here ever in this situation. I worked out. I was so healthy. I took care of my husband. Nothing's ever going to happen to me. Well, it did. And when I make posts and I hear people say, "Oh, it's rare," right? First of all, it's not as rare as people think. It's just very underreported, because when you get sick like this, you have to self-report this injury. You have to self-report this adverse reaction. So, how many of us do you think are actually doing that when we're sick or on hospice, right?
Yeah.
So those numbers are totally skewed. And the bad thing when people say rare is that you're making people not pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Because again, we all think it's never going to happen to us. I am living proof that it can, that I was healthy. And, I was not someone that had UTIs before, and bam, 3 pills almost took me out. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And, my platform it's mostly very supportive. But there are people that get so angry when I say things about fluoroquinolone antibiotics. And so I'm just going to use this opportunity again to say, to make sure my message is clear, my message has never been to tell people to not take medication they need, ever. My goal is to make sure that people are informed of the dangerous side effects of fluoroquinolone antibiotics. They are the drug with the most adverse effects of any drug on the market, any drug, not just antibiotics. And of those, 87% are considered serious or life threatening. This is serious. This is something to pay attention to. The fact that the FDA has 7 black box warnings on this medication, one of which is for permanent and disabling side effects. So, whether you think it's rare or not, these are the facts and you need to be educated. And if you're prescribed a fluoroquinolone, I always say, ask for an alternative if there is one. Don't risk it if you don't have to. There's plenty of alternatives most of the time. And you know what? If it's your last option, then you have to take it. But there are things you can do to mitigate, potential adverse reactions, like do not take ibuprofen like I did, or steroids or anything like that. So I just want to make that message clear. It's not about taking medication you need. It's about being informed and asking for alternatives. And people don't always get that. So I'm not a doctor. I'm just sharing my personal experience and trying to make sure that they're not on this side of the story.
I have never thought to ask about black box warnings. I didn't even know that they existed.
Me either.
And here I've been through this chronic pain path, similar, not similar to yours, but I've also been on a chronic pain path for 12 years and have tried so many different medications that I've had adverse reactions to.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought to ask the question of, are there black box warnings, or what do I need to be concerned about? I've always, and I'm realizing now, falsely assumed that if my doctor was prescribing it and the pharmacist filled the prescription, then I was safe.
I did too.
Yeah.
There's so many failure points in this process that, the doctor doesn't inform you, the pharmacist doesn't inform you. And if you actually look this stuff up online, which people say, you should have looked it up online. To really get into the nitty gritty, you have to search, right? And while you're searching, you have to, like, there's a lot of negative stuff on the internet too. So you're like, is this true? It's very confusing to search. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's not as simple as just Googling something and going from there. So,
Well, and when you're not feeling good,
yep,
you're desperate. Yeah,
yeah,
I've been in those moments where you're like, I just want relief. Yes, give it to me
yep,
because I
yep.
want to feel better. And as you said, your UTI symptoms were active enough that in your shoes, I never would have thought to research it or to go down the rabbit hole of the medication.
Yeah. And now that I know about black box warnings, I've had other prescribers try to give me medication. And I actually said to one, hey, that one has a black box warning. I know so many drugs off the top of my head that have black box warnings now. And by the way, there's no list that you go to and find all your medications. You have to look these up one by one. They don't make it easy for you to figure out which medications have black box warnings. But I said to this doctor, this medication has a black box warning. The doctor says, it does. Tick, 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 tick on the computer. And the doctor comes back to me and says, you'll be okay as long as you take a small dose. I was like, no, I can't.
No.
I can't. I got PTSD from black box warnings. If I hear that, I can't take it. So no. But that's not true, even if you take a small dose. I took 3 pills of ciprofloxacin. My prescription was 10. I only made it 3 in. So yeah, just
But that's amazing that they don't even have a resource that's like a single resource that's like, here's all the black box warnings.
yep.
That's insane. Like,
What
how
I
do
also,
they have
yeah,
that?
what I also think is insane and I don't understand is you have doctors. I came across one doctor recently that said, oh, everyone's known about fluoroquinolones for the last 20 years. Those warnings have been out forever. Like, no, they don't. So
Oh,
you
no.
that's one doctor, and then you have other doctors. I've been a doctor for 25 years. I've never heard of such a thing. How can you have such a disparity? Pharmacists saying, I've been prescribing this, I never heard of it. Other pharmacists saying, I tell people all the time, ask for an alternative. And it's like, wow, how do you that's what I'm hoping to do, right? Bring everything together instead of this, people are all over the place. There's a disconnect between the FDA, the medical system, the doctors, us patients, and we are the one that have to do our own advocacy. We are the ones that are abandoned after we trust this medical system, and we have to figure it out for ourselves. We have to be like these pseudo doctors
Yes.
with no medical degree trying to
Yes.
figure out how to fix ourselves. It's messed up. It really
It's
is.
navigating our medical system is insane.
Well,
And like you, I had no experience with it before my accident. I
yeah,
was always super healthy. I went I went maybe once a year for a physical, if that. Um, I was never ill. And
yeah,
so I kind of lived in this make-believe world that um medicine was there to help you and heal you and make you better, and that this then our American medical system was fairly straightforward,
yeah.
because when you go for an annual physical, like there's no pre-approval, there's none of the whole mess of getting rejected and resubmitting and rejected and resubmitting
Mhm,
and rejected and resubmitting, and the whole mess of navigating the system. I had never experienced it,
mhm.
and it is crazy how punitive it is to people who actually need the care.
Yep. People that don't have the energy to fight. And that's what's
Yes.
frustrating.
Yes.
That's why I'll fight.
Yeah.
I'll fight for everybody. I
But
don't care.
that's
I'm just
amazing.
angry.
Because it's easy to get exhausted and to not fight. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of money that's riding on your willingness to walk away.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that I realized, is that there's a lot of money in the medical industry that's predicated upon people not putting the fight in and not seeing it through. And that was, to me, an eye opener.
I think hospice pushed me to do this afterwards. That I was that close to not being here that it just set me on this course in dealing with my anger and grief and just make it positive instead of like just screaming Rah! All the time, which I want to do. But
Yes.
nope, there's other people out there that need guidance that I didn't have when I first got sick. I'm like, I wish I saw a video like mine. I wouldn't have taken that medication. And do you know, I'm not exaggerating how many messages I get every day from people. I asked for an alternative. You saved my life, or it's just all the time. So I
That's
get those messages and I'm like,
that's amazing.
okay, it is worth it. To like you said earlier when we started, it is very hard to be in the public eye. And people don't really understand that. All the keyboard warriors out there that are throwing those comments at you, they don't understand. You have to have really thick skin to do this. And when I get messages like that, it just helps me avoid that nonsense. Avoid
Yes.
it and say, I'm on the right path. I'm
Yes.
making a difference in people's lives. And that's all that matters. And all the other naysayers out there, mm, keep talking, like whatever. I
Yeah.
got to focus on this mission.
Yeah. Well,
So
and you are making a real difference, and that's beautiful.
I do this all from my hospital bed. That I don't even know people know. Like I'm sitting in my hospital bed right now. So that's how bad I want change. That's how bad we need change. Not just people that are floxed, anybody that's in a chronic illness or in any kind of state like this. We all need change. This system is so broken.
Yes.
And I tell everybody all the time, tell your story, shout it from the rooftops,
Yes.
any chance you get. If you can't write your story. Like you don't have to be in front of a camera, but the more stories that get out there, the better for all of us. So
Yes. Because they make money off of our silence. When we don't share our story, that's where they make money. I have been up at night dealing with chronic pain, knowing that there's a CEO who's making money off of the fact that I'm being denied care that my doctor has prescribed, that I've been on for long term, but that
the medical system has denied. And it is infuriating. It is exhausting. It is bone gnawing, and it's inhumane. It's inhumane.
Because they're living their normal lives and you're not.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
not right.
No. And it's being done purely for financial reasons. And
Mhm.
that's the thing where I understand that to them, the cost of a human life doesn't really compare to the cost of a third or fourth house, but it's my life.
Mhm.
And to me, my quality of life is worth more than some CEO's third or fourth house.
And I feel like the only way those people will ever understand, unless they get sick or a loved one,
Yeah.
then their whole perspective will change. But until then, it's all about politics and money and yep.
Yeah. You're right. Because until my accident, I had no understanding because
Mhm.
people don't talk out about it enough.
Mhm.
And hearing your story has given me a whole new awareness that yeah, I thought I was fairly aware, but I knew
Mhm.
nothing of black box warnings.
Mhm.
So thank you for this because I'm gonna go look at all the medications I'm on and see what black box warnings are there.
Look them up one by one. That's what I did. What is
But
the black box warning? When you find it, you're like, oh my God, I'm never taking this again.
well, it also makes you wonder, like, what of my conditions are a result of something. Yeah, I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's very possible that some of my issues that I deal with on a daily basis are a result of something that I'm taking. Wow. Well, you are doing such amazing work. And I know it's exhausting and I know it's hard and dealing with the hatred that comes with being online and in a public space is hard. It is brutal, but you are
Hmm.
making a difference, and the work that you are doing is so incredibly important.
There are so many people that need it and that say that I give them hope. So if I can do that, that means the world to me. Chronic illness is a very dark and lonely place. It is okay to be sick for a little while, but not
Yes.
for a long time. People just, when you are not like them anymore and you can't do the things they do, and every time they ask you if you're okay and you're sick, it's, oh, they don't want to deal
Yes.
with that. And your
Yes.
circle, when you need people the most, your circle goes from this to this to this to this, and then you just feel so lonely. And then it's really hard to have the motivation to keep going and really hard to find that purpose when you feel like you're alone and nobody cares about you. So that's why I always say, I care about you, people care about you. There's a whole community, even if it's the people on social media. And I feel like my social media family, my social media friends, I feel so much closer to them than some people in my day-to-day life. Like, how did that happen? I did not think like social media could have that
No.
impact, but they are people that are suffering like you, going through things like you, so you can explain what's going on and you can get that acceptance and that venting and all of that. So I found that those relationships I've made online, which I did not expect when I was going to tell my story and get out there, have been so invaluable to me, and they do keep me going. So for other people out there, if you can, be part of the community. Look at me with all this awareness, right? When I first started, I wrote a letter to the FDA. I couldn't even see back then. My eyes were so bad. And I was voice talking, and I wrote this letter and I posted it on TikTok, and the FDA called me. I was like, who, what, who is this? I'm like, little old sick Talia, like the FDA is calling me. And then I posted a video that said, yep, that's me. And it's me in the hospital bed. And it got like 500,000 views. And I said, what is happening? I did not think anybody was going to care about my story. But now that I have your attention, here we go. So we've done so many things. We had our first fluoroquinolone toxicity awareness day in October. That was huge. It brought us all together as a community and helped us raise awareness. We also had ICD-10 codes, are medical diagnostic codes that are used, for diagnosis and billing. So you say I broke an arm and you go to the hospital. There's an ICD-10 code for a broken left arm, right? So as of today, there are no ICD-10 codes for adverse effects of fluoroquinolone antibiotics. they have them for almost all the other kinds of antibiotics, but not the most dangerous form of antibiotics.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah, I joined a team with the Fluoroquinolone Toxicity Study Foundation and Audrey Reynolds, Dr. Stefan Pipa, and we put a proposal to the CDC to get codes for adverse effects of fluoroquinolone antibiotics. It was approved. So this October 2025, there will be codes for fluoroquinolone adverse effects, which means when you go to the hospital, you can be tagged with that versus the only way now they know is if you self-report. But once you have these ICD-10 codes and doctors are tagging you, you're going to see these numbers are going to go way up. So that's really important. We also have an informed consent petition online to try to get informed consent for fluoroquinolone antibiotics. So again, not telling people they shouldn't take the medication they need, but that the doctor should have a discussion with them and they should be aware. If we know and we have informed consent and that doctor sits across from you and tells you, then you can make your own decision. These are all things that, I've been working on and doing. And again, from my hospital bed. And I have a show. This is Floxed on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. So
That's
have
amazing.
that. I just had my first episode a couple weeks ago, which was very strange for me because I'm usually getting interviewed. I'm not interviewing people. So that was the turn. But also, it was very emotional for me. If you watch the beginning, you can probably see that everything came to me in that moment. And I had to like pull myself together, get through the interview and let it out later. But there's still, and you probably go through this too, and other people that are sick, there's still so much denial in this. Like, even though you've been sick for a long time, you just.
Well, I mean, as you said earlier, we don't have a society that supports chronic illness.
Yeah.
And so as a result, you get really good at denying it, at keeping, one foot in front of the other, keeping momentum going. We don't have a society that really saves space for people who deal with the challenges day in and day out. And so it ends up being a lot.
Yeah.
It's a heavy load to bear because even knowing that I've got an accident, even though I've had an accident, I have all these injuries, I still expect of myself that I'm up and I'm productive and I'm taking care of my kids and all of these things that are so much to carry. You're the same. You're in a hospital bed, but you still feel called to pay it forward. It gives us a chance to have a deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
I have to respect that, that it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. But I also love that we each have our struggles that are going towards a higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And a higher purpose that I probably would have never reached had I not had this accident.
Yeah, same for me. I wouldn't be advocating for fluoroquinolone antibiotics. I didn't even know what they were before. So yeah.
No. And I don't know that I would have advocated in general. I mean, like I was so wrapped up in my own little world and maintaining that
Me
bubble
too.
of perfectionism
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't really get into the true nitty-gritty depth of who I was. And so
Yeah.
from that standpoint, I'm grateful because I say this all the time, but I now know that I'm a million feet tall and bulletproof. I
Yeah.
know that as long as my heart is still beating, I can come back from anything. And that is a powerful place to come from. So where would they go to see your show?
On the USA Global TV and Radio Network, they have a channel on YouTube, and then
Awesome.
there's my show. This is Floxed. Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
I have a website now. Obviously, I needed to get help with that because my fingers and my eyes don't work the greatest, but I've been pretty busy. But I'll do this interview and then I'll be knocked out for the rest of the day. But
Same.
hey, it's you too? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's worth it.
You putting this out there is going to help people, whether they even realize it today or not.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get prescribed that and they're going to be like, oh, you know what? I saw that one podcast about this. Let me just look at the warnings and make sure.
Exactly. I've tried like through all of my videos and let me tell you, I would have never gone on camera without makeup with before. Oh, no way. So now I just, I'll throw the videos out there. I look at myself, I look so terrible. My face is swollen. But I'm like, you know what? This is the reality of my life. This is the reality of fluoroquinolone toxicity, mast cell, and like all the things I'm going through. So just let it out and you'll see me like optimistic and then crying and then happy and then crying, because that is the cycle of chronic illness. It just is. Some
Yes.
days you have hope, some days you don't. Some days you pull from your feet to get the strength to survive to the next day, and other days you're just, I feel
Yeah.
pretty up today. And so I just let it all out there. And I really had no idea it was going to resonate with people. I said, they're probably gonna think I'm crazy. Like 1 minute I'm laughing, the next minute I'm crying. And people just tell me, it's so real. I'm like, well, that it is. So I'm glad they appreciate my realness. So I can't do it any other way. I can't. I just have
Well,
to be myself. So
standing in your truth like that gives other people the freedom to stand in their truth as well. And it is a gift.
because before, the life we led, like you say, this perfectionism, it was always like at work, polished, always say the correct things, and now it's like whatever, so it's kind of freeing actually.
It is. It is. And then also, you give other people license to be human as well. And
Right.
that's something that I say this anytime I do PR consulting or social media consulting. I say that is the gift that you have to offer the social media world, because no amount of coding can give AI the ability to be human messy. By being real, by putting the truth of who you are and what it is that you're going through out there, it will resonate with people who've got their own version of human messy. And not even the same variation as yours, but people that are going through relationship hardships or drug addiction or whatever it is that they're struggling with. Seeing the true humanity of your experience will resonate with people, and it gives them license to be themselves and stand in their own truth.
Yep, because we're all human messy in our own way. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. It is so freeing to just be,
Yeah.
to not have to worry about maintaining that facade and letting go of the relationships that didn't stick around. Yeah, I lost my two closest girlfriends when I had my accident, and it crushed me. I was heartbroken. But I realize now that they needed me to fit into this perfect bubble. And when my bubble shattered, it no longer suited their need for me. And that's not a healthy relationship anyway. People need to see you as you're real in
Mm-hmm.
order to help you be the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in the end, you'll be surprised who those people end up being.
Yes, so true. So
Yeah.
true.
I'm surprised, but
Same.
thankful and grateful because I do have a really good community out there. Whether I've met them in person or not, we talk every day, me and my community. And it's not just people that are flocks, it's people in general with chronic illness or people just human messy.
Yeah.
They're part of my community. So,
That's
yeah,
beautiful. That is beautiful, though. I love what you're doing. I love the way that you're helping others. I love the way that you've pulled yourself up from such hardship. Thank you for being human messy with us, because this is the type of story that people need to hear from and learn from.
yeah. I just hope this human messy can get out of my hospital bed one day.
Girl, I believe in you. I
I
believe
hope
in you.
so.
You got yourself out of hospice.
Yeah.
Like I believe in you. And the amazing thing about the human body is that it is constantly renewing itself.
Yeah.
I have total faith in you that as much of a badass and a powerhouse as you are, you're going to get there.
I hope so. I pray for that every day. Whenever someone's like, make a wish, it's 11:11. I'm like, my wish. It's the same wish every day. Get me out of this bed.
You got this. I
It's just been so long. It's like, oh my God. It's just so weird. Like, and it's hard for me now. Like, how did I used to walk before? How did
yeah,
my legs work? Because they don't now. And it's like, what do you mean? It's something so basic. We just get up and walk. I used to run every single day, and now these things don't work. And you're like,
yeah,
why don't they work? I'm like looking at
yes.
my legs, like, it's just crazy. I just, work, damn it. That's how I am with my legs. I'm like, you guys suck, work. But hopefully, I thought if I got off hospice, I was going to be cured and fine. Not
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
Then I thought if I gained weight, I'd be fine. Okay, let's dial it back again. So every time I think I'm gonna just do something and get over a hump, I don't. So I need to like be a little bit more realistic, I guess. I just want out so bad that I just,
I will share with you what I learned from this. With my accident, I've got severe vestibular damage. I had to relearn how to walk. My balance is still wonky, and I fall at random moments. But I did the same thing where for the first year after my accident, they kept saying, you've got to heal, you've got to rest. And a year in, I realized the only thing that resting was doing, I wasn't healing, I wasn't feeling better. I was just getting weaker and weaker. And so I had 2 toddlers at the time, and I didn't ask anybody. I didn't tell anybody. I loaded them into a stroller to give me enough counterbalance and used it like a walker. And so for the very first day, and I look back and I'm like, this was a stupid mindset. But I was like, okay, my only goal is to make it to the stop sign at the end of my street and back. Well, it turned out that was way too far. I made it there, and I was on my way back, and I was like, I've got 2 toddlers. I've now got to figure out how to get them home again and out of the stroller and into the house. And my energy was gone. I was weak. I was so sore. I had this shuffling, awful walk, but I made it. And I cried the entire way back, and I was exhausted. And I said, okay, I've proven to myself I can do it. Tomorrow, I'm going to do 1 more step past the sign. And every single day, my goal was 1 more step. I wish I had started a little bit more realistic, like maybe the mailbox and back. That process put my life back together. And 1 more step. That was my only mantra, was every single day, 1 more step. Because we look at progress and we look at people who've made these huge leaps, and we think, oh, they just got up out of bed one day and did it. And I used to be able to do that. I'm going to do that. But the reality is that starting from where you are today, 1 step may be your 1 more step. And that may be your progress for today. And tomorrow may be 1.5 steps, or it may be 2 steps. But huge journeys are made 1 step at a time. If you can give yourself grace with that and start with 1 step, you want to get out of your bed and walk? Focus on just that 1 step. And each day doing just a little bit more. And you've got this. You've got the internal strength and the fortitude. You're going to get yourself out of that bed. And you're going to get yourself back to mobile. And it may never be who you were before.
I know.
But I know that you've got what it takes to get there. You got this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That means a lot.
I know this is exhausting, and I know this is hard, but what you are doing is valuable and so incredibly powerful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Girl, well, I'm going to let you go because I don't know about you. I'm tired.
Me too. My face gets really red. I don't know if you can see how red it is.
You look great. You look
Thanks.
amazing.
I'll just say it's blush.
Considering that you came back from hospice, you look amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go keep being badass because you are amazing.
You too.
Thank you so much for today. And
Thank you.
you're doing amazing stuff.
Thank you. You
Thank
are
you.
too. Thank
Sending
you.
all the love.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Caroline's Adventure podcast. While you're here, subscribe to the show so you're the first to catch new episodes when they're released. And if you enjoyed hanging out with me today, please leave a 5-star rating. For links to social media and more content, visit the description for this episode or go to carolinesadventure.com. That's Caroline with 2 A's, adventure.com.